Hi, what's up everyone? This is Anis and I'm excited to be here with you today on a special occasion. Today marks my first Datadog birthday, and what better to celebrate it than by chatting with an incredibly talented site reliability engineer that I've had the pleasure of working with during my first year here at Datadog. I'm joined by the amazing Robbie from Cape Town, and together we'll dive into a mix of topics that, let's say, touch base on everything from DevSecOps, food, culture, books, his journey in observability and security, and his also key takeaways. Hello, Robbie. Very happy to have you with us today.
Hi, Anis. It's good to be here.
Amazing. So, Robbie, to start this, let's say, conversation, tell us more about your journey, to become, let's say, today a senior site reliability engineer at DIDx.
Yeah, so I started out in 2017, just finished university. I thought that Windows was the best operating system to ever exist and that Java was going to rule the world. I was very quickly humbled, proven wrong. I was thrown into Scala and Linux at my first job at Synaptics in Stellenbosch. And then after about a week or so, I slid into doing SRE stuff when my team lead Willem asked me for some help with a Jenkins server that had gone down. And then basically 6 years later, I wound up at DIDx. It's spelt DIDx, pronounced DIDx. Mm-hmm. It's a company also in Stellenbosch. We do self-sovereign identity, decentralized identity. And I'm a senior SRE at DIDx, and we use Datadog and AWS and Kubernetes to work our magic.
And before going into these, technical details, I remember the first time I wanted to reach out to Robbie actually. And when you go see his LinkedIn, you'll find that he puts Times Person of the Year 2006. He does things, sometimes stuff, always things. Tell us more about this caption that you use. And I remember highlighting the Times Person of the Year 2006. Tell us more about this story, Robbie.
So the Times Person of the Year 2006 is you. Mm-hmm. It's everyone, it's all of us. We're all Times Person of the Year 2006. The things, sometimes stuff, always things, that's just a little quip that I added just for some laughs. Really, we're all Times Person of the Year 2006.
And I remember reaching out to you, Robbie, when you were still at Synaptics, to better understand if I can help. And I remember also having a very interesting chat. So from, kind of starting with a human-driven conversation to potentially working together on a project, and maybe we'll speak also observability and security afterwards. Tell us the story from your perspective and how it was.
So it was actually really funny. I had just started looking for a new job, looking to move away from Synaptics and move somewhere else, when suddenly I just get a ping on LinkedIn and someone has requested to connect with you. And I checked and it was Anis. And it just said account executive Datadog. And I was like, oh. And this was 2-3 days, maybe a week after Datadog had their first ever global outage.
It was in March, yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm an SRE. I do Kubernetes, I do Docker, I do AWS, cloud infrastructure, platform engineering, all that kind of stuff. From my understanding of the Datadog outage, it was a Kubernetes cluster that basically went sideways. And I was like, well, I mean, maybe this is like a potential job, something that's landed on my lap.
Happens every time.
So then I, chatted with Anis a little bit, mentioned that I'm kind of looking looking somewhere else for a job, and then we had our first chat on Zoom, and I kind of realized quite quickly that this wasn't a job offer or a interview or anything. This was a bit more of a sales call, but it wasn't just.
Come on, Robbie! I made everything in my position to not call it a sales call.
Well, yeah. So it's not like hey, my name is Anis. I work at Datadog. Let me sell you a product. It wasn't like that at all, which was really nice. It was actually just hey, tell me about your tech stack, and then let me tell you about how Datadog might be able to help you in your where you could slot Datadog in and where that might help you with your tech stack. Which is really nice because, I mean, I'm a technical person, I'm an engineer, I like talking tech, I like getting into the nitty-gritty details. And having that technical chat with Anis, where you actually have an engineering background, it was quite refreshing to be able to have that talk and have that deeper understanding of the tech side, and then be able to be like, well, hey, Datadog can solve these problems for you. Like, I think one of the things
because I don't know yet, sorry to interrupt here, Robbie, just to advocate for your point, I don't know yet if I can help, you know. First, I need to better understand what you do in your experience, because at the end of the day, you were moving to another company, which is DIDx, and we're gonna speak about. So how was, let's say, advocating for Datadog internally, and how we went from, you know, let's say a human tech-driven conversation to an actual project? And I remember you were my first customer, Robbie and Datadog. Tell us about the story. Curious to know also again your perspective and to share it with the audience today.
So what happened was after the call that I had with you, I spoke to my architect my architect and friend Henry at the time, and he was the architect at the time. He had also moved to a new company. And he said that they use Datadog at their company, and it's absolutely amazing. It works so well. So then I took a look at Datadog's documentation, and I was like, shit, this looks really good. This looks like, you know, it does a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do. Selling data, so I was sold basically out of the gate. I was sold instantaneously. Selling it to my team lead Willem was very easy.
Oh, it's Willem.
It was very, very
No, that
easy.
It went from your pricing is a pain in the ass to I love the product and APM helping us, you know? I think that was after?
Yeah, that was after. So that was after we had brought Willem, you know, after selling the idea of using Datadog to Willem.
Yeah.
Then he was like, oh, your pricing's really shit. And we... Selling it to Willem was very easy. The idea of using Datadog, because we need metrics, we need monitoring, we need alerting, we need that observability. That very, very important. One of the core tenets of platform engineering, of SREing, is observability of everything, of what's going on inside
and
your stack.
security now correlated with that.
Yes. And so selling that to Willem was very easy because at Synaptics we were using Prometheus, Thanos, high availability, S3 for the long-term data storage, Grafana, and
open source journey.
Very much open source journey. And that technology is great, but the problem is that you need to build and maintain all of your dashboards, all of your alerts, all of your ingestion. You have to build and maintain all of that stuff. At one point, we upgraded our Grafana stack and we lost all of our alerts. Everything was gone. And we had no method to roll back. We had to sit there for 2 or 3 weeks and rebuild all of our alerts that were missing now. Whereas with Datadog, it's just install it and there it is. There's all the dashboards, there's all the metrics, there's all the monitoring, there's all the alerts.
Out of the box.
Yeah, you flick a switch and now you have security analytics. You give it access to your AWS account and now you have all of the AWS best practice checkboxes to go through. It's all there, just instantaneously. It was great.
So it was mainly comparing the situation of staying like that and the cost of inaction, you know, to more a situation where you can scale, you can focus on revenue generating activities, developing features, rather than spending time troubleshooting through an ecosystem that I might call it for observability and security. And Robbie, we spoke about, you know, the open source, etc., etc. So what's your take on the buy versus build approach in observability, which from my engineering background, I would say those are two approaches for a similar outcome, even though I work at Datadog and I advocate, of course, for our platform and for our technology. But curious to know your thoughts on this one, because it's a subject that I hear a lot, you know, build versus buy in observability and security.
As an engineer, unless you are a god, there are 24 hours in a day. That's it.
Yeah.
There are...
No, I mean, as an engineer, you need to live, so it's 8 hours, maximum 7 per day. Come on, Robbie.
Well, so if unless you're a machine, unless you're an absolute machine and workaholic, there are 24 hours in a day, and if you don't need any sleep or eat or anything, it's 24 hours in a day.
No, that's a huge mistake I did already.
And any unit of time that you spend doing one thing is a unit of time that could have been spent doing something else. So if you spend your unit of time building and maintaining and developing an open source or your own in-house monitoring, metrics monitoring and alerting stack, that's time that you could have spent doing platform engineering, building software, building, testing out high availability, load testing, whatever. It's time that you could spend doing anything else. For a business,
time is money.
Yeah, time is money. And for a business, sure, if you can afford that, if you can afford your engineers spending their day-to-day, spending their time building out this monitoring environment, this monitoring stack, then cool, great, go for it. Like that works for you. At DIDx, at Synaptics, it didn't really work out. At DIDx, my team, it's 2 people. The company is 11, 12 people. We do not have the time and the resources to dedicate to doing that, to basically building our own internal Datadog. So for us, it made a lot of sense to just say, fork up the money, pay the however many $100 a month it costs us right now to run our Datadog, keep an eye on the billing, and just use that, because then we can focus on other things that to us is much more important.
I mean, on the billing side, and when I come back to that sentence, the pricing is hard to understand. I believe, Robbie, it's our role, as advisors, as Datadog advocates, to help you understand. I remember personally sharing pricing calculators, etc., just to help you understand. And also our, let's say, and to finish with Datadog is not just the platform, it's the whole experience with the team, etc., etc. So I think, to conclude with Datadog and observability and go more on a tech landscape in Africa, it's 2 approaches. That's from my end. What you're saying is on a startup where you should focus on revenue generating activities, building code, in a highly competitive market, which is South Africa and Africa in general, is a must. So you can, rather than spending time looking through logs, one of the reasons I left engineering, is more spending time building those features that you're gonna have a faster time to market and push them into production. Back to DIDx, Robbie, I'm really curious how, let's say, today IT is driven business from DIDx perspective. Tell us more about DIDx vision, mission, because you target a very interesting subject, which is, the sovereignty, blockchain, the legacy identity government system. Tell us more, Robbie.
So DIDx, we do self-sovereign identity. We're currently building a self-sovereign identity stack on Hyperledger Indy and Hyperledger Ascar, and Aries. Sorry, Hyperledger Aries. It's the Hyperledger Aries Cloud API Python is the core of our stack, really. Open source tech, publicly available, anyone can use it and run it and play with it. So our vision is at DIDx is to basically change the world, is to reinvent and redesign identity, digital identity specifically. The key is that we believe is self-sovereign identity. So
SSI.
Yes, SSI. The difference between self-sovereign identity and the current popular way of doing identity, which is government-issued IDs, government-issued passports, the difference between those 2 things is that SSI doesn't require a central authority. It doesn't require a centralized point of power and authority. It's anyone can run their SSI stack, anyone can issue a credential, anyone can verify a credential, anyone can have a credential. A credential is like your ID, your driver's license, your phone number, your address, etc. Your university degree.
Tell us more about a specific use case, for example, with DIDx, and a specific use case where I know that we worked on Yoma project, but from identity perspective and also from a digital trust perspective, how blockchain, SSI, and all of the technologies that you mentioned are contributing to that.
So something about blockchain that's we use is that it's immutable. Once you write something, that's it, it's written. You can later on issue a revocation, but you can never delete something. You can never amend the data that's written to the blockchain. So we're using Hyperledger Indy as our primary blockchain, but we're building our software to be blockchain agnostic, so that we could really run it on whatever we need to run it on, whatever is the most appropriate. Sorry, what was the question again?
My question was, from DIDx perspective, if you can walk us through a real use case, for example. I know Yoma is more, let's say, targeting to build, let's say, a platform with a digital resume, kind of. Tell us more about, let's say, a real use case that you're really proud of at DIDx. Curious to know. That we share also with the audience.
So one of the things that we've done is we worked with a company called Intersect in the area, in Stellenbosch, and we built a proof of bank account with them. So what it does is, if you start a new job, for example, your employer needs to get your bank account information so that they can send you the money, your paycheck, or if I want to buy something from you, unless I'm paying in cash or crypto, I need to get your bank account information so that I can send you, I can deposit the money into your account. There's a company called PSG. They are they're an investment broker in South Africa.
Okay.
And they actually had a massive problem recently where they sent a customer their banking information, but it turned out that someone had hacked the email, some man in the middle thing, and the bank account information was falsified with their information. And when the customer sent them the money went to the wrong account, and everything went basically tits up. PSG was taken to court for that, and the court found that in the digital age, in today's digital world, PSG didn't have enough checks and balances in place to verify that when someone deposits money that someone receives the correct bank account information, and that when someone deposits money into that account, that is the correct information. So
there is a lack, let's say, in implementing digital trust throughout this, and verification throughout this process, which is highly regulated with money, I guess.
And the court made PSG pay back the money and fined them a huge amount of money. I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was a massive amount of money. I'm sure you can pull it up. And so what we've built with Intersect is a method that allows you to share your banking information as a QR code, or as basically kind of like a URL to a YouTube video. That then, when you click on that URL, it will then open that up in your mobile banking application, and that does a cryptographic verification that this is the person's legitimate bank account information. So that,
and when I go see DIDx, use case, so it went up here, Robbie, there are different use cases to the blockchain and the distributed identity in general. I personally worked on a project in France about that. There are a lot of use cases, but I still see there is a gap in the adoption, and there is this need, to educate and go with companies like DIDx, to target real use cases, for example, financial services. Speaking about financial services, Robbie, I know in South Africa, a phone is a bank.
Yes.
And I personally work and collaborate on a daily basis with fintech companies from Africa. So tell us more about that ecosystem, how it looks like, and what's your take, on the next few years from a tech landscape, on the fintech journey, but also on Africa in general. Go ahead, sorry.
No, so South Africa, there's approximately 60 million people in South Africa, and pretty much everyone has a phone, and everyone pretty much has internet connection. So South Africa has a very high population of mobile phone users, smartphones mainly, and internet connections. And there are banks in South Africa that don't actually have an office, fully remote banks, where you sign up for your bank account online, and you install an app on your phone, and then you now have a bank account on your phone.
Okay.
And in South Africa, we do a lot of mobile banking. I don't think I've logged into my online banking through a web browser in a couple of months, and I haven't been to a bank branch in person probably for over 10 years. It's all mobile.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was surprised also, by the number of companies, fintech companies, just helping democratize, let's say, mobile money in the region. And Robbie, from your perspective on working on different startups in South Africa, before, kind of concluding the professional way, the professional side, let's say, and going more into a fun part of culture and books, curious to know on, first of all, how today you see the future outlook for the tech ecosystem in South Africa from your perspective.
Well, one of the biggest challenges currently facing industry or tech in South Africa is we have a problem with it's called load shedding. Basically, the government-owned the government-run monopoly for the electrical provider, Eskom, doesn't produce enough electricity. There's many reasons for this. It's a very complicated environment that I am not the most qualified person to speak about. But I believe for every 1 hour of load shedding, per hour, per region being load shed, I think it's something like 100,000 Rand in lost revenue. That's just gone. That's about 50,000 euros, give or take, per hour, per region.
I can imagine even more implication on the money, time, business side of things,
So that's one of the biggest challenges that we face in South Africa. Some businesses, generators, solar panels, battery packs, but not all businesses can afford that, and they rely on the electrical grid. However, I think the outlook is quite positive. I think that it's a very emerging market. I think that South Africa is very unique because of the amount of mobile phones and the internet usage in South Africa. South Africa is in a very unique position where the opportunity is ripe for businesses, for startups, for new innovation in this environment.
I totally agree. And just to conclude this part, I personally, again, collaborate on a daily basis with startups and scale-ups from Africa. I work with also other European markets, but what's unique in Africa and in all the conversations that we have is, hey, we want to move forward. We are using new technologies. We are curious to understand how you can help us scale more. Everyone is worrying about scaling faster. And I think here there is a role in the governments and also, in the whole tech landscape to support that growth with initiatives that fix some gaps as load shedding in South Africa. Robbie, we spoke about the work-life balance in a sentence. So as a site reliability engineer, you have a high demanding job, especially in a startup ecosystem. How would you say, how do you disconnect? What kind of activities outside of work help you disconnect and have that happy hour, let's say, from your day?
Yeah, I play video games a lot. Well, not as much as I used to, but I play video games. I've got a gaming PC. I mainly game on my PC. Then I've also got to have an amazing girlfriend who gives me a lot of time and attention and love and support. Then I've got some friends that I hang out with every now and then. We play games together. So my girlfriend and I we're long distance. We've been long distance for some time. And what we do is we sometimes will read to each other. So I just finished reading The Lord of the Rings to her. And now I'm busy reading The Hobbit to my girlfriend. And it's very special.
That's a very interesting activities. And speaking of reading, Robbie, I know that we kept that relationship together and we always speak on Slack and share books. I know we shared one specific book, but I believe that you will speak about Surrounded by Idiots. So curious to know your perspective on that book. I'm curious to know, really.
Yeah, so you told me about Surrounded by Idiots one day, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty interesting. So I bought the audiobook on Audible, and I started listening to it, and then I was like, okay, shit, no, I need to take some notes after about an hour of listening. So then I went and I actually bought a physical copy of it, and as I went through it, it is really interesting. I think it's a very good introduction into psychology and DISA. Very good introduction. It's very surface level. It's high level. Doesn't go into too much detail. It's to the point. I think it's a very interesting book. I found that reading it, I could very quickly identify my personality, which I believe to be very strong blue and some green.
Yeah, maybe Rafaa will show us in the prod some of the personalities and how that book, kind of give, a perspective about yourself. So again, thanks Aishigol for recommending that book, a colleague and a dear friend. Again, myself I am a red personality. I am impatient. I think my roommate here can attest about that. But yeah, I mean, books are also a kind of way for me to disconnect, because I think, Robbie, sales is a high demanding job too. Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, reading also can help me disconnect, kind of go away from all the routine that I have. And then, which is awesome, is that you can debate around books. You can recommend books. And I'm looking forward, to be honest, to start a new book, because I just finished mine. So totally we'll share some insights afterwards with you, Robbie. So maybe to conclude, Robbie, and recap the key takeaways and key points that we discussed. We went from DevSecOps to SRE to DIDx to South Africa ecosystem. I enjoyed speaking to you. I always enjoy speaking to you, Robbie. And I'm curious to know if want to highlight something before I conclude with thanking everyone contributing in this project. Let's say a close-up word or sentence from you, Robbie, on this initiative.
Yeah, don't stop learning, don't stop growing, and don't forget to have fun.
Have fun. Thanks so much, Robbie, for your time. Thank you, everyone who were listening and seeing us today. This episode will be broadcasted on YouTube. I want to finish with a thank you note. I want to thank my roommate Josh for his support, lights, cameras, etc., etc. This project was the fruit of collaboration of a lot of people. The key ones here, Rafaa, the one and only producer. Thank you so much, Rafaa, for your time. And then Robbie, of course, our guest. And to conclude, have fun, don't stop learning, and don't stop your curiosity. Cheers.